Hello, crafty friends. This is Jen, and thank you for joining me today. Today, I have 8 different Christmas tags for you, all using Karen Burniston's topper tags in the 4 different sizes that they come in. And I just thought that this would be a fun video to show you how you can use some bigger die sets to make topper tags or tags for Christmas gifts, and kind of stretch out your dies, for different purposes. So let's get started. So first I'm just going to show you the 4 different sizes of the topper tags. And they come very large. The regular size that would be with the tag book pop-up, and then 2 smaller ones. And they come with all these different accessories so that you could add hearts or flowers to the little hole at the top where the ribbon would go. And they have different ways of trimming the top edge to make it just look a little fancier. So before I start, I like to have a bit of an insert when it comes to the center of the tag. So because there is not a die that would make that insert, and if you die cut the smaller topper tag, like the next size down from the largest size, it gives too much, there's just too much space. So I'm showing you right now a really great technique to create your own little insert. So the first thing I do is I trace out the inside of the die. And now I'm going to measure 1/8 of an inch once I add my line across, because I don't need that top part. So then I'm going to go all around the edges and add a 1/8 of an inch little measurement. And I do this just all the way around the whole traced out tag. And you don't have to make it 1/8 of an inch. If you want more of a border, you could make it a 1/4 of an inch. But I like to have just a little bit of the border showing. Now once that's done, I'm going to draw my lines. And I can go over, because this is just to cut out a template. And I'm going to draw this out. And then I have to create the rounded edges. So I'm using just a little round bit of tape. You could eyeball it, which I do end up doing later on. But I just measure it up to the outer line and then add the little rounded edge to it. And it's not like perfectly round, which I noticed when I started, so I had to kind of go in and round it out a little bit more. Again, you could eyeball it, or you could do it this way. And now I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim that out. And I'm just trying to be very careful while I'm trimming this out, because this is going to be the template, so you don't really want it to be too, wonky. I mean, it's hard to trim perfectly straight. And I suppose you could use a little paper trimmer and then just trim the edges with your scissors. So now we have this template cut out. I'm just going to go around the edges with my eraser to get rid of the pencil lines. So now my background is cut out. And I'm just kind of making sure that it's the exact size that I want. So for this first tag, I'm using Karen Burniston's Sleigh Pop-Up, and I'm not using the pop-up part, I'm just using the sleigh. And I like to use bigger die cuts for different things. So that's why I thought, oh, this would be perfect for a Christmas tag if you have a large gift. And the first thing I need to do before I assemble anything is make my background. And for this, I'm using Distress Oxide ink in Tumbled Glass, Broken China, and Chipped Sapphire. I also have this little tiny die cut that was left over from another thing I was cutting out, and I just used that under my finger so that I don't leave a fingerprint on my background, which sometimes I find happens if you're, you got your hand on it, you're pressing down, it will leave a fingerprint. And also make your fingers very blue, which is going to happen to me no matter what, because I always end up messy. So I'm just going over and making sure that I, blend it really well. And you might want to go over it a few times until you get it just the way you want. So we're all set there. Now I have this really great Copic Opaque. It's almost like white paint. And I'm just adding a little bit to the side and a little tiny dab of water. And then I'm sprinkling that, like just tapping the brush lightly and creating snow. Which is a really good, it doesn't fade, this white. It doesn't sink into the color. It works really, really well. And it dries relatively fast too. So I've just set that aside to dry. And now I'm going to work on putting my sleigh together. So for the sleigh itself, I die cut that out of heavyweight white cardstock because I knew that I would want to color it with Copic markers. And I'm just going over the shadow areas of the bottom of the sleigh with dark bark, so E49. And I'm just kind of adding where I think the shadows should go. Now for this first tag, I did slow the video down a little bit. I do speed it up later on, but I just wanted you to kind of see the process. Not so fast that, you might have to keep rewinding. So, and I apologize that this video is very long, but I had a lot of tags I wanted to get in. So I'm just going in with the E37 for the sleigh body, and we don't have to color the whole thing because I am adding that little die cut, which I die cut from red cardstock and then ran through my embossing folder. And now I'm going in with E35, and again, now I'm just making sure that, I got everything covered, and I'm going to glue that embossed red part of the sleigh on now. For my glue, I use Lanco Neutral pH adhesive, and I have a fine tip bottle that you can get from KarenBurniston.com. It's my favorite glue, and the bottle is great. It's not too thick of a tip. It's a nice fine tip, so you can do small bits. Now I'm going to create all the stuff I'm going to put in the sleigh. So for that, I'm adding a penguin. And the penguin comes from the Winter Animals die set. And it's a cute little die set. You get a little penguin and you get a hedgehog and a little bear that you could turn into a polar bear. And then I'm adding the gifts and the wreath that come with the Sleigh Pop-Up. So I'm just trying to figure out what am I going to do first. So I'm going to build the penguin first. And I've die cut this out of just scrap cardstock that I had. I try and keep all my scraps just for this purpose. And I could have die cut everything out of white cardstock and then colored it all in with Copic marker, but sometimes you don't feel like all that coloring. And this is just an easy way to do it. I do add a little bit of Copic marker afterwards just to give it a little dimension, add a little shadow. So we're just going to put the penguin together. Very simple to do. And if you do have the Winter Animals die set, or you want to get the Winter Animals die set, Karen Burniston has wonderful assembly videos just so that you have an idea of what all the little pieces are for. And she will assemble that and show you how to do it. And she pretty much has assembly videos for, I believe all her dies have an assembly video, even the little animal dies. So here I'm just adding a little bit of Copic marker just to add a little shadow, just to give, you know, the hat a little dimension. Make it look not so flat. Isn't that cute? I just love those little penguins. He's just so adorable. I'm going in with the brick white to add some shadow to the penguin's belly, and then a darker orange to add some shadow to the feet and the beak. And now our little penguin is done. So moving on, we're going to now create the gifts to go into the sleigh. And like I said, these come with the Sleigh Pop-Up. And I'm going in with my G29, G07, and YG25. And just blending that all in. And then we're going to color in the ribbon for the gift. And I apologize that I didn't have my lid down for those. I get used to holding it in my hand and I forget to put it down. And we're just going to create the bow. And then add that to the gift. And then, I mean, you can use scrap cardstock, or you could use patterned cardstock or pattern paper. You could really do it however you want. I just like to use Copic marker to color in, so you get some shading dimension. You can color it whatever color you want. So if you don't have that color cardstock, you can come up with your own theme. And I'm just doing another ribbon here. And this time I'm doing it in greens. And this time I'm also using a smaller bow. So there's a large bow and then there's a small bow that's really for the little wreath. But it works good for the gifts as well if you wanted to do it with that. And I'm just going to add that on. And then for the wreath, I'm going to stipple little green dots in the G29, the G07, and the YG25. And it just gives it that, you know, like it's almost pointy. Like a rough wreath. And then for the bow on the wreath, I decided to try something new, and I added a lighter red color to the wreath. So now I'm going to figure out how I want to do this, gifts, and like where I'm going to put the penguin, where I'm going to put the gifts. And I'm just kind of figuring that out. So first I'm going to glue in the penguin, and I can just kind of place that sleigh right on top, and then just keep going with the gifts. And I'm just trying to dab the glue off that as any excess. It does dry clear. And it comes with this little cute snowflake, which I die cut, and then I'm just adding to the sleigh for more like decoration. And then I'm going to slide the wreath over the front of the sleigh, and then add a little dab of glue on the front and a little dab on the back. And then just press that down firmly. My little present was popping up. So I like to use these craft blocks that I have, like the stamping blocks, and hold down my die cuts if I'm gluing them. Just keeps them from sliding and moving. And I'm just adding some Stickles Stardust glitter gel to the bows, just to give it a little bit of shine. And I'm adding a tiny little bit of Glossy Accents to the penguin's beak. So moving on, I decided that I wanted to add a reindeer, and Karen Burniston has this really great die set called Christmas Animals. In it, you get a deer and you get a little Christmas mouse. And so with these die cuts, just like most of her animal dies, it has a stencil feature. So I am going in with a fine tip black pen and coloring in the hooves and the eyes. And I've left the nose because I'm going to make the nose red. Now I'm going in with the E35 to add just a little bit of dimension to our little deer. Some shadow, just so that he pops a little more. And for the deer, I also decided that I wanted to add a little Christmas hat. And then he has these really pretty antlers that go on. And I'm just adding all of that stuff together. And the die set comes with all these little extra bits that to make the little Santa hat. So you could add the Santa hat to the mouse or to the deer. And really you could add the Santa hat to any of the other animal dies or character dies. They're all very interchangeable, which is wonderful. So you can really get a lot out of her die sets. This is just the belly piece that I'm adding, and I cut that from a cream colored cardstock. And now I'm just going to add the antlers to the back of the deer. I wanted to put the Santa hat on first because I didn't want the antlers to be in the front. I wanted that to be in the back. And I'm just adding a little more detail around the face now that the hat is on, and I can add the shadow under the brim of the hat and around the chest piece. And now our little reindeer is ready to go. So I'm just adding just a little bit more detail to the hat, and I'm going to add some glossy accents to Rudolph's nose. And now everything's all set. We can get that put together. And I thought, you know what this background needs is some snow. So I just trimmed a piece of white cardstock and took my pencil and added a snow line. But if you want, Karen Burniston also has some wonderful edge dies like Nature's Edges. And you can get a die that would cut snow as well. But I just had a piece of scrap laying around and just thought, you know what, I'll just quickly trace out something. But really what you could do is cut out another one of those centerpieces that I made and then die cut the snow using one of her edge dies. And I'm just going to trim the excess off with my scissors. Really great scissors. They are Singer scissors. So if anybody in subscribe to this channel does sewing, I apologize for using sewing scissors for craft scissors, but they work amazing on paper. Right now I'm just gluing down my sleigh, making sure that I get all of the little bits on the bottom of the sleigh. And that's one of the best parts about the fine tip bottle is it just gets those tiny little bits perfectly. Now I'm placing that on, and I know that a little bit is going to be hanging over the edge, and that's okay. I'm going to trim that after. And then I'm going to glue down my reindeer. And just adding some glue to him. And then placing him there. And the little stamping block is perfect to hold that down. So I used Karen Burniston's small script Christmas die sets and cut out the ho 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 just from white cardstock. And I'm just kind of adding that to the top of the tag. And this small script word die has ho 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 and Merry Christmas and greetings and just different ones. And it also comes with a background die too that goes with it. So here I'm just going to use my smaller craft scissors to trim off the little excess that hangs over the edge. And then I'm going to add my background to the actual blue tag that I did die cut out. And I used, I found a whole stack of Bazzil Basics cardstock that's got a really nice pattern on the front of it. And I was like, oh, score. I forgot I even had these. So I decided to use that as my background paper. And here I'm just going over with a white jelly pen. I like a size 10. It's a little thicker. And I'm just adding some shine lines to the sleigh and to the nose of the reindeer and the penguin. And I want to add a little bit of pattern paper to the top of the tag. So I'm just trimming a little bit of pattern paper to glue onto the top of the tag. And then I used the add-ons in the tag, the topper tags, to add the little circle over top of the hole of the largest one that I'm making today. And there we go. We have a beautiful tag that would fit a large gift. And we're going to do 2 of each tag. So I cut out another template, and now I can just use it for over and over again. This time I wanted to add pattern paper to the background instead of just making my own background with distress ink, because we're going to be using the Fireplace Pop-Up in this one. So I die cut the top of the tag from a pretty green cardstock, and I added a fancy bottom to it using one of the add-ons too that come with the topper tags. And here I'm just cutting a floor piece and then adding that to my pattern paper. And I'm just going to be gluing down all the bits and pieces, as well as all of the accessories that go with the fireplace. So for that, I used the Fireplace Pop-Up, the Fireplace add-ons 1 and 2. And let's show you how to do that. So here we have our finished tag. Lastly, I want to add a stamped sentiment to it, and right now there are no stamped sentiment Christmas stamps from Karen Burniston, but I'm really hoping that that will be something in the future that we see, because she just came out with some really wonderful stamped sentiments, and I really love using them. So for this one, I used My Favorite Things small Christmas sentiments, and I just did the Joy From Me to You, and I used Versamark ink and white embossing powder, and there's our finished tag. So now we're going to move on to the second largest tag, and this I believe is the topper tag that actually would be fit the tag book pop-up. It's about the same size. And you could also use these with the tag book pop-up. You could make a larger tag book if you wanted to use the larger topper tag. Or you could use maybe even smaller ones. I'll have to try that out. That would be fun. So here I'm using tumbled glass and broken china and chipped sapphire again to create a background for my stamp. And again, with the Copic ink, or Copic paint, I'm sorry, and adding some snow. But for that one, I didn't put the snow all the way down to the bottom because I knew I would be adding a bit of snow background. For this one, we're going to be using Karen Burniston's Holiday House die set. I love this die set because you can use it for Christmas, you can use it for Halloween, you can use that house any way you want. And there's all kinds of great ideas if you go to KarenBurniston.com and look up Holiday House. There's pictures of some of her cards, design team cards, and they have all kinds of wonderful ideas that you could use the Holiday House for. And I put glue all over and then realized I don't need to put glue all over it because it doesn't need glue all over the place. So I had to wipe off some of that glue. And I just die cut this from scraps. Some of it I die cut from white cardstock so that I could use Copic markers to color it in. And one of them is the string of lights that go on the roof of the house. And I just went in with green to add the wire for the lights. It reminds me of Noma lights for a Christmas tree whenever I do them green. And I just going in with 3 different colors. So red and yellow and blue. And I just quickly go 2 different colors, one darker, one lighter, and then kind of blend those in. And we're going to add those under the snow. So I'm going to add them to the snow first. And then I'm going to add that whole piece to the top of the roof. And then I'll just use my craft block to hold that down. Now for this part, I embossed the brick with my embossing plate, and then I went over it with the campfire red distress oxide ink, and then I'm going to go over it with the vintage photo distress ink just to give it some almost like weathered look around the edges. And I'm going to add that front piece onto my house and just let that sit for a minute. And now I'm going to add the door frame. So I made the door frame on this black, and then I made the door itself red. And I made the window frames red as well. I didn't want to add too much black to this. I wanted it to kind of be, a little bit cheerful. And so I'm just creating a wreath for the front door, and I just die cut that from white cardstock and colored that in with Copic markers. And I'm just drawing in the little door handle. And then I'm adding the snow to go over the top of that second part of the house. Now, for the chimney, it doesn't come with a chimney piece, but you can die cut the door from white cardstock, and then you can add brick looked using the die as a stencil. And then to clean that off, you just take your cloth, add some water, and clean that distress oxide ink right off the die, and it cleans up perfectly. Now for this one, I'm adding some yellow in the window to make it look like, you know, there's lights on in the house. And I just add the red frame over the top of the yellow background. Now this little piece here is the doorstep, but I'm not going to add that to the house until I have it on my background. And I'm just going to glue those windows on. And then our holiday house is ready. Now I am going to add, before I do anything, I'm going to add some glossy accents. And the first thing I'm going to do is add glossy accents to the Christmas lights. And then I'm going to add glossy accents to the window panes. And then I have this really, really pretty white Nuvo crystal ink, or crystal drops, sorry. And I'm adding a little snow to the front of the house. And then I have this glitter red gel that I'm adding little berries to the wreath. And I like to add a little sparkle to the snow. So I'm adding some Stardust glitter gel to that. And then I set that aside to dry. It usually takes about an hour for that to dry. So here I'm making another snow background out of a scrap of cardstock I had on my desk. And then what I'll do is glue that on, and then I'm just going to trim the edges off. Once that sets for a little bit. And then I will add my holiday house. And the holiday house, it fit this perfectly. I also used the fancier edge die that comes with the topper tags to die cut the top of the tag using just a plain red cardstock. And if you notice, it has those two little die cuts out of it. So it would be like two vertical die cuts and then two little dots and then two you can add ribbon through that, which is very cool. So you could really make it fancy. But before I add my top to my tag, I want to stamp a sentiment onto it. And so for this one, I chose With Love at Christmas, and that's still from the My Favorite Things Small Christmas Sentiments. And again, I'm using Versamark ink and white embossing powder. And then once that's done, I like to just go over with my rag and just wipe off any excess static powder. And now I'm just adding this onto the top of my tag. Making sure that it's lined up. And there we go. So we have another tag done. Moving on, we are going to make a tag that looks like a tray of Christmas cookies. I thought this would be a really cool idea. And it was fairly simple. I used some of the wood pattern paper that I made the floor for with the fireplace, and then just die cut a like candy striped glitter cardstock that I had in my scrap. I used the rectangle dies and cut a piece to look like a cookie tray, like a cookie sheet for the oven. And then I used Karen Burniston's Winter Charms, which has gingerbread and snowflakes and Christmas trees. And I thought this would be perfect to make cookies with. It has a large gingerbread, a small gingerbread, a large Christmas tree, a smaller Christmas tree, and then two different sizes of snowflakes. So I'm just gluing on the cookie sheet, and I kind of put it on a little crooked to make it look like, you know, you just took it out of the oven, you set it down on the counter. Now I'm just adding the little trim that comes with it for the large gingerbread man. And I die cut the background out of black cardstock and then just the trim out of white cardstock. Now for the bigger tree, I am penciling in like what would be the icing on top of the Christmas cookie. And I'm just going over the edges with my brown Copic marker, so E37 and E35. And that just gives it that kind of baked edge look. And then I'm going to go in on the top with green Copic marker, so G07. And I'm just going around the edges with that. And then I'm using G14 and then just going in over top of that to blend that in just a little bit. And then my lightest color, YG25. And then what I did was I took the die and placed it over top. And then wherever I saw green, I went in with my white jelly pen and added some, like, almost like you added swirly white icing on top of that. And so I did the exact same thing with the next two little die cuts. Created the gingerbread man, only this time it doesn't have a back die or a trim die, but you can use the die cut to add those on like a stencil, which is what I did. I used my jelly pen and a black pen to add those bits on. And there's our second little gingerbread man. And then I did the same thing with the little tree. Now the little tree has a little spot for a charm at the top, so I had to be pretty careful that I didn't lose that little piece so that the cookie looked like it had a hole in the top of it. But I did basically the exact same thing and then placed the die on top so that I could make the little swirls. And the little hole did come out, but it's set aside so that I don't lose it. And then I realized that, you know what, it needs something else. There's this open space. So I decided that I would use her Christmas charms and add a candy cane to the cookie sheet. So it's, you know, some Christmas cookies and a candy cane, some gingerbread, a Christmas tree. And here I'm just adding that little circle part to the cookie. Now it does make 2 candy canes, but I just needed 1. And I didn't add anything fancy. I just added the red on top of the white. And then just glued that to my cookie sheet. And I'm just trying to remove some of the excess glue. And now I'm going to make a sentiment. And for this one, I die cut a piece of black cardstock. And this time, I believe I used Spellbinders. It's a really cute little stamp set, Sipping Sentiments, I believe it's called. And it's for the mugs and the little ornament die cuts that they have. So it has all kinds of different little sentiments to it. And I'm just dusting off the extra powder, and I just trimmed some fancy edges on it. And I'm going to add that to the top of my tag. And then the last thing that I'm going to do once that sets is add some glossy accents to my cookies, because I want it to look, you know, like it's if you ever have those sugar cookies with the icing on the top, they have a little bit of a shine to them. So I wanted to add that. And then I added some shine to the candy cane and set that aside to dry. And I also added some glitter gel to the white frosting on the gingerbread men. And there we go, another topper tag. So we're now down to the second smallest tag. And for this one, I wanted to do something kind of simple. So I just used Mermaid Lagoon and went in and added a little bit of a background and just sprinkled a little bit of white on to add some snow. I wanted to also show that, you could do simple cards too. And for this one, I used Karen Burniston's Outdoor Scene, which is a cool little die set. It has 2 background dies, one with a deer, one with some trees. It comes with some birds and clouds. And I thought that it would make a really good snow background with the deer and kind of like almost like a hunting background if you are a hunter. But I really like the deer in the background. So I just cut those 2 pieces out. And what I did was I cut the topper tag itself 3 times. So once for my background and then twice to make the deer and the tree background. And then just trim them lower and lower so that, it looked like layers. And then I also die cut the small script Merry Christmas and the background for those as well from gold and black. And then I'm just trying to remove some of the excess glue. And now I can put that all together. And this is just a really simple tag, but I thought it was pretty once it was all done. For here, I'm just adding a kind of lumberjacket background to the top part. And I used, again, one of the fancy little trim dies that come with the topper tags. And I'm just going to add on the deer part. And then lastly, I'm going to add the little sentiment. And then after I got the sentiment on, I felt like it needed something else. So I kind of dug through my stuff to see what I could find. And I found this little jar that I had of snowflake sprinkles. I hadn't even used them. And so I just added a little snowflake right beside the Merry Christmas. I didn't want to add anything else. It just needed just that little something right beside the sentiment. And those would be great for a shaker card later on. And there's our next tag done. Moving on, we're going to make one more tag using the second smallest die in the set. And for this one, I'm making a snowman card. So I have the excess background snow border that I had die cut earlier. And I'm just reusing that. And then I'm going to trim the excess off of that. And then all I have to do is, because I used a snowflake pattern paper as background, I don't have to really do too much else. I can just add that on. And then for this one, I used a sparkly white cardstock. I think I found it at Michael's, to be honest, in a 20 pack. And it lasts forever. And I used that as the topper and made the fancier die cut to go around the edge. And now I'm just going to put my snowman together. And this snowman comes with the top hat and the trim to go on the top hat. It comes with the arms and the nose, and it also comes with a face. So you could die cut the face right into the snowman if you wanted, or you could die cut just black cardstock and then put the face however you want. And there's all kinds of different ideas on KarenBurniston.com as well. But for this one, I wanted to have the snowman holding the snowflake. And there is a snowflake that comes with the snowman set. So I do put the arms on with excess, and then I just trim those off. And then I have him holding the little snowflake. And then I just die cut the nose from orange cardstock. And I'm going to add that on. And I want it to kind of look like he's looking down at the snowflake. It's kind of hard to do when you're adding on black eyes, so you don't really see where the eyes are looking, but I think I got it. And then for the little black, like the eyes and the mouth, I used a shiny black cardstock that I have, which is really, really nice. And then for this part, I used a sentiment from that Spellbinders stamp set, which I will have listed below. I'm sorry that it got cut out here, but it says warm wishes and snowman kisses. And I thought that was perfect for this. So we'll just add our snowman on and we have another tag done. Now we're on to the smallest die in the set. And for this one, I decided to go with a poinsettia. Karen Burniston has this great video where she uses the twist flower pop-up to make a poinsettia. And I thought, well, that would be great. Unfortunately, the twist flower pop-up leaf that she uses is quite large, and it was just a little too big for this tag. But the Fun Flowers die set has the same leaf, only smaller. So I die cut 5 of those leaves from a dark red cardstock, and then 5 of those leaves from a lighter red cardstock, and then 5 from a green cardstock. And I used the twist flower flower center to die cut some gold little circles to make the center of the flower. And then I trimmed the stems off. And here I'm just trying to figure out what I have to do to put the flower together. And now I'm just adding the dark colored red leaves on the bottom first. And this was a relatively easy tag to make, but it turned out so pretty. So I'm adding the greenery in behind the dark red. And some of that green is going to overlap, and I'm just going to trim that off after. And now I'm going to put the lighter red on. And this just gives it some dimension without really having to add any extra color or anything like that. And now I'm just going to add on the little gold circles. For this one, I didn't even add a sentiment. I just thought, you know, it would just be nice just to have a little flower on the center. Not all of them have to have a sentiment on the front. And I'm just adjusting those however I felt like they needed to be. Now I'm going to trim off the excess leaves. And then lastly, I did add some glitter gel to the flower on the top leaves just to give it some sparkle. I felt like it just needed a little something. And then that just added just a little bit of flair to the tag. And that tag's done. Super easy and makes a really pretty tag. And this is our last tag for all of these. And I'm just adding a background like I did before. And it's the same thing. I'm measuring out 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And then I will fill in those lines. And then for this one, I just made the edges myself. I just kind of went around, as I call, eyeballed it. And now I'm just going to trim that out. And then I will erase the pencil lines that may be left. Now for this one, I just went with Chip Sapphire. I went with a very dark background and blended that all in. And then we're just going to add a little more snow. And then I'll set that aside to dry. While that's drying, I'm going to use Karen Burniston's Christmas charms. It has this really pretty branch, and then it makes a Christmas ornament, which I thought would be a great thing to put on the last tag. And so I'm adding G29 to the, I guess it would be like a pine tree, and then G07, and then blending that all together with YG25. And if you really wanted, you could add snow to the branches using a white jelly pen or even that Copic Opaque ink. So for the Christmas ornament itself, I wanted to go in with reds. So I went in with the dark red and the lipstick red, and now I'm going in with prawn. And then for the last one, I tried different pinks, didn't like them. And then I went in with the peach color, and that was perfect. Just to add that like shine center on the ball. And then I just die cut the ornament top from gold cardstock. Now I had this really pretty gold thread that I decided to use, and I just created like a little loop, brought my thread through to create like the holder for the ornament. So I'm going to glue down my background, and I made a shiny red topper for it using a metallic red cardstock. That's another find from Michael's. It was like a pack of 5 different metallic papers. And I'm going to add a little glue, and then I'm going to wind my thread around one of the branches. And then it's kind of finicky because that thread is very, very thin. And then I'm going to very carefully add the glue to the branches and to the ornament itself. Again, very finicky. I should have used my tweezers. And then pulling that thread out of the way, I'm just going to press down my branches and then trim that little excess bit of thread off. And I felt like it needed something else, so I'm going to add some glitter snowflakes, and I just cut it from that white glitter paper that I used before. And these are different snowflakes from both the winter charms and the Christmas charms. For this snowflake, I decided to add one onto the actual ornament. And then I just kind of trimmed away pieces and then added it all over the background, just to give it a little something extra. We're just going to add a few more. So that's the nice part. Like, I just added some extra that came from the snowflakes that I'd already previously trimmed. And then all I had left to do was trim the last little bit of the branch off. And then our last tag is done. And I added just a little green to the top. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more videos, and thank you so much. Have a great day.